Everyone, so in this week's Tourette Talk video, I'm talking with Amanda and her 7-year-old daughter Ellie, who is a beautiful, strong, and such an amazing little girl. I had so much fun talking to these two, and I know you guys are going to love this week's video. This is just part one. You can tune in next week for part two to finish off the conversation. But in this week's video, we talk about her school, how schools just making the smallest effort makes such a huge difference in the lives of those with Tourette syndrome and their families. We talk about how tics feel for Ellie and so much more. I hope you guys enjoy. And again, remember, this is just part one. Part two will be dropping next week. I know you guys will enjoy this one. I am here today with Amanda and Ellie. I am so excited to be talking to them. This is another situation where social media let our lives cross paths, and I'm so thankful for that. As I always say, this is the part of social media that I love. I've been following Amanda and Ellie's story for a little while now. I'm pretty new to your story, but they share such a strong and empowering story showing Tourette syndrome through Ellie's eyes. So thank you both for being here today.
Thank you so much for having us. What do you say? Thank you. She's like, thank you. Okay, I'll get it.
So I want to start with a question for you, Amanda, and kind of the same question for Ellie when we get going. What age or when did you start noticing some of these tics with Ellie? And was it more the vocal or the physical first?
Well, she was a cute little baby, a cute little nugget, a little biscuit loving baby. She was like between ages 1 and 2, and she like one day in our do you remember our old house in Kitty Hawk? She was like running through our condo, and she was like tucking her leaning her head back a lot, throwing her neck back, and blinking a lot, and chin tucking. And I was like, motor, yes, that's right, yes ma'am, motor. Oh, she's like, girl, you better say which tick it is. Yes ma'am, motor tics. We noticed these motor tics, but we asked our pediatrician, and she's like, well, you know that like that she might just be doing this now and grow out of it. As long as it's not bothering her, it's not bothering you, then it should be okay for right now. You know, she was just so little, and then it like not stopped, but like barely happened for a long time, like until she was like 5. You're 7 now, 7.5. Oh my gosh. And then like at the end of 2019, I was like, dang, she's really picking this stuff up again, and lots of throat clearing, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Oh, look at your little face. It doesn't taste very good, does it? And I don't know. And you know, the word we kept using is quirky. I was like, she's just so quirky. She's so quirky. She's so fun. Yeah, like no, not corgi. No, not a corgi dog. She's such a corgi. All hairy, and we've had her. I'm just kidding. We just thought she was so quirky. But then this spring, the vocal like really super came out. I mean, it was like just lots of like saying the same stuff and making whistling sounds, lots of snapping. And I was like, I literally like paid attention really good for 1 week. And I was like, she has Tourette syndrome. I think I've known this for a while. We'll get a diagnosis, but I don't even need one to know she has it. I just, because it was so consistent for like so long. Yeah.
You knew about Tourette syndrome then prior to this then?
I had been looking up like tics, and I was like, okay, I just thought, well, she's quirky. And then I realized, you know, in like 2019, I was like, oh, no, people, you know, if people do that for a little bit longer, it's Tourette's, but she hadn't been really consistently doing it. So after like the year mark, I was like, oh, it's Tourette's. And I just knew because I watched it like in 2 months, get almost every week. It started escalating even worse. And I was like, okay, she totally has it. Yeah. I just knew it.
That makes, I think that makes a lot of sense to me. And I think that proves to be like a lot of times what I hear a lot is the doctor telling parents, oh, well, they'll grow out of it. Don't worry about it. I can't help but to feel a little frustrated sometimes when I hear people tell me that that's what they were first told. Right. And I understand doctors can't know literally every single thing.
Right.
That's why we have specialists. But it's frustrating because then also I was told I was going to grow out of it even after my diagnosis. I was told that once I hit my 20s, I wouldn't tic anymore.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Oh, just so finite. Like that's how it is for everybody across the board. And that was Clearly, that's not true at all.
No, it got worse for me when I hit my 20s.
Surprise.
Yeah, because it makes sense to me in a way, because as an adult, obviously I'm more stressed than I was when I was a kid. I mean, I have bills to pay now. I have the house.
Yeah.
I don't have kids, but I have dogs now. But
Those are for our kids.
yes. And so I remember being a kid and being so excited to get to my 20s and being like, oh man, when I hit my 20s, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to have control again. Like, I can't wait. And then my 20s came and I was in college, which was the most stressful time of my life.
Right.
And I just started taking worse. I got on medication for the first time, and I never had to be on it my whole life.
Yeah.
So it was this big pill just a big pill, no pun intended with the medication, that I had to swallow. Like, I had to swallow my pride a little bit getting on medication. But my senior year of high school, I cried in my mom's lap almost every night for a while until I finally was like,
mom.
oh, she's the best.
Oh, I love to hear that.
You and Ellie's relationship remind me of me and my mom as well. And I would say that's my whole life with Tourette.
Oh my gosh.
And my dad, like, without them, I don't know if I would be the same type of person with Tourette syndrome.
It's the same type of, yeah. Some of the DMs I've gotten, they're bad. Like, people are like, I'm just being told like to shut up and stop, and I can control it, and it's like physically hurting me, and I'm like, I hate that parents fight it because it's uncomfortable. Like, they're just like, they just don't want it to be. You can't want it to be untrue so bad that it becomes untrue.
Right.
So why not make the best out of it and just, I love hearing that your mom was like that. I know I can't mom everybody who DMs me about that, but I just want them to have their own approval first. If they don't even have the approval of someone else, because maybe they still have a chance to grow up into like a strong adult, even without that support. But that support is everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my mom, she was who I would run to when I would cry. My dad has a hard time with my tics, but not in the sense of like telling me to stop, but we're pretty confident I got it from him. So we think that's why he feels just heartbroken to see me. But like his way is always like, because he'll always ask me if I'm okay. And then like a little bit later, something ridiculous flies out of his mouth. And I know it's just to make me laugh, because that like pulls me out of that moment, because he's always willing to make the people he loves laugh at his own expense. So
I love that. Self-deprecating. Oh, that's fun. Yeah.
Yes.
We do that around here.
Yes. So they were great. And I think that it gave me that confidence growing up. And I saw myself all the time as a normal person. I just moved more. So I love when I see somebody like you with Ellie and that, because it just fills me up so much knowing that she's going to be such a strong woman because of you.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
What did you say? I hear everything. She just said, I hear everything. Well, we know you're here. We're just saying it in front of you.
Yeah. And when we have you here, Ellie, I do want to ask you, do you remember at all? And it's okay if you don't. Do you remember at all the first time you felt yourself ticking?
You don't.
It's a hard thing to remember.
What?
It was when I was a baby.
She said, when I was a baby.
Oh, all right.
And I remember the first tick that happened again.
What was the first like tick that happened, remember, earlier this year where you were like...
It was on the ferry, the clicking, remember?
The clicking on we were going to Ocracoke. Yep, I even have video from that day.
We were coming back.
I filmed her. We live right next to, we live at the bottom of an island.
And she was getting annoyed.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, she was getting annoyed.
My hair is curly.
My hair is curly. So many observations. We get on this ferry and we go to an island that's actually right next to us, but you have to get on a ferry. And that's when I started filming her really heavily for the pediatrician. I was like, so there's no test. I'm gonna film her. That's why we have so much video for Instagram, because I video everything.
Mommy, can I tell her about a trip later?
Oh yeah, we'll tell her about that later. That's a good idea. But it was like we were getting annoyed, and I hate that, because it's like we didn't register what it was at the time. It was like it broke the barrier of like quirkiness and went into like, wow, okay, you just like aren't stopping. So we almost thought like it was intentional. It was making her sisters mad. So I guess she has that memory. See, that makes me sad that that's her memory of like knowing it was intentional. She was so mean. Well, they love you and you know it.
Yep. Well,
Their best friends fight a lot.
I can't tell you because some of the ones that I don't necessarily remember the tics happening, but I used to sniff a lot when I was a kid. And then also before we knew I had Tourette syndrome, and I laugh at this now. So hopefully this will make you feel better. My grandma feels so bad to this day, but she used to always yell at me for sniffing and say, Brittany, you need to like blow your nose. Brittany, blow your nose. And I kept telling her, like, I don't have to.
Right. And that's what we remember from 2019 with her. I was like, blow your nose. Like, and then you know what? The doctor was like, it's probably just congestion or allergies.
Mommy, I remember something before the Perry.
What?
Throat clearing.
Throat clearing. Yep. You do remember that. And that was from earlier. She remembers throat clearing being one of her first ones.
Yeah.
Because it was like, well, it's probably some residual. That's what she was saying. And I know doctors can't know it all and they can't predict the future, but we would have loved to, like, parents know their kids best.
Right.
I know some parents can be a little bit wild, but I don't like to cause a fuss. I don't want her to have Tourette syndrome. I don't want anything to be wrong, but when we feel something's wrong, it takes a lot for us to go to the doctor. So if we're there asking, it's probably important. So throat clearing is what she remembers.
Yeah. And I hear that a lot too. I hear a lot of people say that they were told that their kid just probably has allergies because a lot of first tics are throat clearing and sniffing. And I always want to be like, but why would they bring you in just because they're clearing their throat? Like,
I know.
They want a doctor bill for that.
But some people, I remember somebody saying like they, parents just take their kids into the doctor like because they're annoyed with something, and I'm like, but it could be a neurological disability. So it's not just. I wasn't like, oh my God, make her stop. I was just like, hey, this doesn't seem right. I'm actually worried, but I had no idea. Like I didn't.
So with tics and having those first tics, Ellie, can you tell me, or are you able to kind of describe to me how it feels for you when you're ticking?
Oh yeah, what does a tic feel like? Like, why do you?
I have no idea.
You have no idea. Well,
I can't describe it.
She does say it's hard to describe.
It is.
But one time, do you remember one time we were talking about it, and you were saying it was like you were locked out of your brain's control room?
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't have a choice but to do it, right? Mm-hmm. She has the coolest description sometimes. It's like when you're not old enough to articulate things, sometimes you can come up with the best analogies.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. I've gotten some of my best ones from children.
Yeah, right. They're genius. They're just in touch with something else that we are so far removed from. Mm-hmm. And their imagination, I guess. But she said she felt like she was locked out of her brain's control room. And she's described tics to me before, and she's basically saying like she would try to hold it, and it would just, I mean, you could see it build up, almost like a thermometer. I'm like, I feel like I can like watch the red rising in her. Yes. And she's described it those ways to me before, but sometimes she has a hard time, describing what they feel like. But that made sense.
Yeah, I've had it for over 20 years, and it's still hard for me to try to explain to people what it feels like to not be able to stop your body or your or anything. So I have mostly motor tics. So I move around a lot, but I have a clicking tic. That's one of my vocal tics, is a clicking. And mine kind of sounds like I always describe it as like a squirrel. It sounds like a squirrel, like harvesting.
Yes, that's so cute. See, I know. And some of these things that she does, these motor and vocal, she's 7. So when she does it, it's just adorable. And she's at the age where she's like, okay with it being cute and stuff. But my friends who are older are like, oh, I don't like it. It's this, it's that. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I know. I can't imagine like her being older and being like, no, that's not cute anymore. I'm annoyed by this. I don't want to do this. But right now, because she's a kid and all these second graders are so silly and goofy and they do stuff like this all the time. Sometimes it's like blending in for her at school. Like sometimes it's just like, but when it gets a little quieter, that's when it starts to stand out.
Yeah. Do you have a hard time when you're in school, Ellie, with your tics?
Only today at recess.
Today at recess. Do you want me to tell her what happened?
Can I?
Please.
Yeah.
There was this boy who in the other class who didn't understand Tourette syndrome. He was calling me and asking and stopping me from saying a few bad words.
There's a little boy in the other second grade class who he kept saying, stop saying bad words, stop saying bad words. And she was trying to explain Tourette syndrome to him. Most people in her school know. I mean, they heard
a lot of people in my class. I was on the morning news the first day.
She was on the morning news the first day where they talked about Tourette syndrome and said, this girl's going to make some noises. And
no, Mommy, it was a video from the open house.
With me. It was a video of me and her and the principal. And we just gave a quick heads up of what Tourette syndrome was. Best principal ever.
Yeah.
We're in a really small town.
But not every class watched it.
But most did, and most know about you. So she usually has great experiences.
Yeah.
Like this little boy today just followed her around and told her to stop cussing. And she was like, she gets frustrated because she's like, how many times do you need me to tell you that I can't help it? And I can imagine for you, your whole life, it's been like, this is not behavioral.
Right.
This is not behavioral. That's the thing that as a mom, it's like my one like triggering thing is like telling someone that's not by choice and them treating it, but like turning right around and treating it like it's choice. I'm just like, okay, now I'm going to hurt you. I'm sorry.
Right.
But I have no choice.
Mommy,
You were running a line and now you've crossed it.
Right. You were there, and now we're here.
Mommy,
Right.
I tried.
Called?
The pie. She's.
Don't.
Oh, I can't tell her what you wrote. Okay, maybe we'll tell her later.
Because I didn't always show it.
But at school, you have a pretty good time, right? Everybody's pretty supportive. What do your friends think of your Tourette syndrome?
Lily's really respectful with it.
Lily's really respectful.
Aww.
And sometimes she uses a little wheelchair to get around when her legs are tired. And her friends, don't they fight over who gets to push you?
Yeah.
They fight over who gets to help you. That's so nice.
The only people I picked so far is Lily and Lillian.
Only Lily and Lillian get to push her, though.
Oh.
Okay. No one else. They want to push her in the wheelchair. She's got a great support system at school. Thank gosh.
I think
Rare.
smaller schools
I have
sometimes are the best help.
Yeah.
The only people who want to actually push me are the girls.
Oh, all the girls want to push you. You're good friends with all the girls, huh? The fact that it's small, the principal took time to call before the school year started and was like, "What do you want to do?"
Oh.
And she was like, "Shouldn't we just nip this in the bud?" I was like, "You are a good progressive person."
Yes.
Because growing up, I'm looking back and I'm like, "Oh my God, that boy had Tourette's. Oh my God, that girl had Tourette's. Oh my God." I never knew. And now looking back at their behavior, now I get it.
Yeah.
But she nipped it in the bud. She didn't act like it was something to be embarrassed about because it's not.
That makes me so happy. It gives me chills when you said that she called and asked like what to do. Because
It's a Friday. I'll never forget. It was a Friday and I was like, why do you care so much? I couldn't believe it. How cool is that?
absolutely.
Clever.
My mom remembers still, me too. I had an English teacher, so we had days where we could just write in a journal. And those are my favorite. I love to write. I've always loved it. I went to school for English. I love
write a journal in the morning too.
Yeah?
Journals too.
That was always my favorite.
Topics.
And I wrote about Tourette syndrome one day because the topic was my choice, and that's what I always did. That was
once we had a writing thing and we were using our plans and mine was tics.
Oh, cool.
Oh,
She
yeah.
wrote about tics in her journal too.
nice.
But
So much
actually,
in common with
we
you.
had pieces of paper.
Okay, cool.
But at least it was a line piece of paper.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Well, I wrote about it, and my teacher called my mom in for student teacher conferences. And we get in, and he's like, I just wanted to call you guys in because I read Brittany's journal and she was talking about her Tourette syndrome. And I just want to make sure that I'm doing what I need to do as her teacher to help her. He's like,
Get that.
yeah, he's like, I want to learn about it and I want to make sure I'm doing what I need to. Like, and my mom and I, we still talk about that because that made such people. I think a lot of educators who don't, I don't want to say, because I know I'm involved with a lot of educators that are amazing people, like the teachers that I wish I had my whole life.
Yes.
I know there's so many incredible people, but I think a lot of the teachers, they don't understand like how you don't have to go these 500-mile yards above and beyond. Like that little question was all my mom and myself needed.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
I knew it was a safe space for me now to tick. And because of that, I ticked less.
Right. That's the whole thing. Oh, and see, this is the kind of thing that I would love to give that example, your story, to other people, because when Ellie doesn't feel, we watch her, we have videos of her when she is like, I don't know if I can be myself around this person, that causes things to just ramp up. I mean, and it can get kind of rough, kind of like physical. There's so many teachers, this would make you so happy, but so many of these DMs are like, I want to be prepared just in case. This fourth grade teacher the other day, she goes, I'm a fourth grade teacher. I don't have any students with Tourette's yet, but I know I will one day. So I just want to know as a teacher, what can I do? And I'm like, literally the fact that you're asking, that's everything. So if you have one, just be like, hey, how can I make this easier for you?
Right.
And you remember this story to this day. You remember how it was permission. It's like, you have permission to be yourself. What shouldn't everybody like default have permission to be themselves? But I find these people and her with Tourette syndrome, like not giving them. Good job. These amazing human beings with Tourette syndrome not giving themselves to be permission to be themselves fully because they don't want to be a burden. They don't want to be annoying. They don't want to be disruptive. And it just sucks to see that. And it's because of who they're around, because when she walked, we have this local coffee shop and we love the owner, and the owner loves her and loves Tourette syndrome. Anybody with Tourette syndrome, she's just so supportive. And she walked in one day and she was having this really incredibly powerful tic. And she was like, oh, good one. It was that. I brought it up. But she was like, that was a good one. And we just watched her she was just so nice.
Yeah.
So normal, just like no big deal. And then kept the conversation going. And we were like, that's all Ellie wants.
Right. And that's what I think people struggle with, pretending like it's not happening, but not realizing like that's what our biggest help is if you keep pretending like nothing's happening, my tics are going to start to subside a little bit. They might not stop completely, but I'm going to start realizing I can do this in front of you. So my body's not tense anymore. Right. Like I don't feel like I have to hide it or mask it in any way. And that's what
like that. She was talking about her friends at school and she's like, they just keep talking, mommy. We just keep talking. They pretend it's not happening. That's just what, they don't call attention and say like, oh, are you okay? Are you okay? Like, it's just like it happens. They're in conversation and then they just go into the next thing instead of like making a big deal out of it. She loves when people just don't make a big deal out of it.
Right.
And she loves when people laugh with her too, not at her. It's got to be with. Oh, and I'm so protective about that. I'm like, laugh with us.
Yes.
But the second I see at, I'm gonna have to cut you. I'm just kidding. I would get so like crazy mom about it. I can't help it. It's just how I am.
That's all we have for this week for part 1 of my talk with Amanda and Ellie. Make sure you tune in next week to finish off the conversation and see what great things that we discuss.